The Ruck and Roll Show is back for Season 4 as the Six Nations grows ever closer. I'm your host, Adam Gaston, and with my co-host and a very confident English gentleman, Dom Leach. Dom, how are we getting on?
Really well, thank you. Had a lovely Christmas, nice New Year, and a bit of a break as well, and now back to the busy schedule that is just rugby, really, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's always full on and full go, so yeah, just nice to be back and doing it all.
Yeah, well, you talk about a busy schedule, and a busy schedule is going to be because the Six Nations is just around the corner. So we're filming this on Tuesday, it'll be out tomorrow on Wednesday, and then we've got our first game on Thursday. I mean, it comes just thick and fast. If you're tuning in to any of our TikToks, the Ruck and Roll Show, we've had a couple of Six Nations previews going out, so it's all coming to a head now, ahead of the rugby's greatest championship, I suppose. Dom, if you want to just fill us in on what you've been up to since we closed Season 3.
As I say, I had a bit of a break of things because there was no champ rugby. There was very minimal Prem rugby. There was very minimal rugby in general during January, so it allowed me to have a bit of a break and time off and recompose myself and get things in order coming into the second half of the season. So it was quite nice, in all honesty. But I'm glad to be back and doing it and keeping busy again. So yeah, that was nice. But no, back commentating again. Commentating the last couple of weekends and back in Worcester again this weekend. So yeah, as I say, all systems go again. Churning out the TikToks here and there, and yeah.
You've been doing a bit of social media stuff as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I was up in Leeds, what was it, last week today actually, doing some stuff with Green King pubs, promoting the Six Nations, being their England representative, giving my outrageous takes, as wild as they are on here. So yeah, that was a really good experience, and yeah, hopefully people go and drink in Green King pubs. They've not paid me to say that, but yeah, it's a good.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity for you, Dom, for sure. To get in there, and you say outrageous text. One of those texts was England winning the Six Nations. Now, this is what we're all here to talk about, really, because it seems like they are the hot favourites, given the look of the squads that have been chosen in the Six Nations. France there as well, of course. Ireland always contenders. Scotland, can they finally challenge? So this is what we're all here to find out. But you mentioned a fan bait. I think we've all been itching to have this one on the Ruck and Roll Show since the end of Season 3. But we'll get into it with our first game on Thursday night, which is Ireland versus France. This is one in Paris, the Stade de France, on a Thursday night, which is a little bit interesting, adds to the plot potentially. However, Steve Borthwick has managed to get his England team out before Andy Farrell somehow, even the game is 2 days before theirs. But Andy Farrell has put his team out this morning, and a couple of surprises, Dom, here. I think the main one is that Ireland star of the last few years and British and Irish line, James Lowe, has been dropped completely from the squad. What do you make of
that? I really don't hate it, to be honest. I know I've said it before. I think over the last year or so he's kind of deteriorated in form. I think the Lions was his biggest telling that he was maybe starting to lose it a little bit, and I just wasn't overly convinced by some of his performances. You know, what he was bringing to a game that potentially other players could bring, it wasn't much comparably. So I think as well, the Ireland squad over the next few years is going to take its hits. You know, you look at the team that it was playing, that was out 2 years ago in comparison to what it is now. It's not changed an awful lot. There are still a lot of the same players there, which means there's a lot of players in that upper echelon of age. And I think you've got to give a chance to some of these players who are going to need to come up. Yes, it's nice when you can rely on a James Lowe in a big moment or something, or in an injury crisis or whatever. It's kind of like what happened to Simon Zebo when he was being phased out of the Ireland squad. You've just got to make way for younger and better talent, really.
Well, you say they're getting a wee bit older, and that may be true in a lot of their key members of the squad here, but I think probably probably due to injuries more than anything else. Injuries and suspension. You got Bundyaki, obviously the key story within the last week is he is out for the next 6 games through disciplinary reasons. I think that could maybe see him, depending on how many Connacht games, there might be a couple of Connacht games in there. I could see him potentially back at the end of the Six Nations potentially. But you've got players out for Ireland. A lot of props out actually. Jack Boyle, Andrew Porter, Paddy McCarthy, who really did quite well in the autumn. And you've got a lot of these. You've got a lot of injuries here, and you mentioned the edging squad. You've got Tag Byrne in there. I suppose would probably be the key older one, but I think he has probably tried to bring in a couple of new players. I think it's a bold team, Dom. If you look at it 1 to 15, you've got Jeremy Lockman in there, who isn't the youngest himself, but it's a new person to bring in, probably through necessity more than anything else, with the lack of loose head props. Dan Shane, obviously, Thomas Clarkson, he's been impressing well. Joe McCarthy, Tag Byrne, Cian Prendergast is quite a surprising one when you consider sort of Jack Conan being on the bench, and but I think Prendergast's form for Connacht is really warranted potentially an opportunity. And it just sort of, you look at the backs as well. You've got Stockdale coming back in. He's got 40 caps, but he comes in for James Lowe, and he's been in great form for Ulster at 15, bearing in mind. But we obviously know that he can play 11 as well.
As an Irishman,
McCluskey in. Go ahead.
Do you look at that team and think you don't deserve to be there, or you shouldn't be there, or it should be someone else?
I look at it and I think, as much as I like to see a more even split of Munster, like you look at it there, I mean, there's a much more even split of Munster, Leicester in that starting 15 on it, and Ulster players. You much more even split across the provinces, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go out on Saturday and they're going to play like they played in 2023, because it's just, I don't see, to answer your question, I think some of the guys there, or maybe Cian Prendergast, does he deserve to be in there ahead of a Jack Conan who's been, he's experienced? Potentially not, but it's also, you're trying to find a balance where you're trying to bleed these young players through, and I think it would be sort of remiss and sort of a bit hypocritical of me to sort of stand here after sort of calling and say in the autumn and saying we need to see more players from other provinces given a chance, a bit like Ian Henderson said a couple of weeks ago, and then not sort of, I guess, not tip your hat, but not sort of respect Andy Farrell for sort of trying some new players, even if it is through injury and suspension. He has given a couple of sort of fresh players, players potentially that have been out of the fold, opportunities here, and if they can try and, build those players up alongside some of those existing players that they've had down the years, and I think that's the formula he's maybe going to go for, because I think he probably recognises in this championship that England are going to be incredibly hard to beat, and France are still incredibly strong despite their injury problems. So to answer your question, I think it's maybe a wee bit harsh on some guys. I don't think James Lowe, I would have probably still started James Lowe, would have probably still started Jack Conan, maybe moved Doris to 6, for a bit more experience. But I'm also glad to see some of these players being bled in, because I think Ireland need to sort of look towards that World Cup and really build. Because they've got a sensational manager, a sensational coach rather, in Andy Farrell, and they really need, I think the World Cup has got to be their priority now, where they sort of try and build towards it. They've won Six Nations, they've won Grand Slams with Andy Farrell, they've beat the All Blacks in a test series in New Zealand, they've beat South Africa in Durban as well, so yeah, I think I'm not upset with the squad, really. But to sort of look towards France and sort of mention France in that, you obviously did your preview for France, and you looked at their squad and sort of a lot of the players they've missed out. Gregory Aldrip, who of course captained them last year. Damien Penaud, who is like a record try scorer for France, and Gael Fickou. All out, all key players that are out for them. Why do you think Fabien Galtey has made these decisions? Do you back those decisions, or what's your thoughts on it?
I said in my video that the potential omission of Aldry is because of potentially a bit of a rift between him and Galtier. So that might just be something they're trying to iron out. Or maybe it's just managing his minutes. I'm not too sure why he would have left. Maybe, it's a statement to leave those guys out if you're just going to bring them in later on in the tournament. It's very different if you name them in the squad, don't use them in the first couple of games, and then you play them, later into the tournaments. Yeah, as I say, it's a statement that he's not bringing these people in. Why? I have no idea. It is quite French of him to do, just kind of be like, I'm not bothered. If something's happened, it's like, this is my decision, I'm going with it. Penno, again, there's a lot of talk, is it his defensive capabilities? Is it his tracking back when chasing kicks? Is it, how he's dipped in try-scoring form? Because I think he's got 8 tries in 18 games this season, which for some wingers, they'd absolutely take that. But for a guy who also scored 27 tries in 26 games last season, it's way off the mark for him. So maybe it's just a bit of a threat to Damien and just being like, okay, you're not nailed on the 14 jersey. You've still got to prove yourself at club level and be doing the basics right in order to get into the squad. Again, Fiku, I really don't know. As I said as well, he brings so much experience. He's got so many caps for France, and sometimes it's just good to have a level head like that in the dressing room. That's why Owen Farrell is so important and good for Saracens, and he's good in the England training camp. He's still in the background, but he doesn't feature. But I think it would have been really beneficial to have Fiku there.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely seems like a statement that he's trying to lay down to his players, sort of say, because they weren't particularly amazing in the autumn. They didn't blow teams away like they have in previous Autumn Nations series. I think of the past couple of years, great performances against New Zealand's and South Africa's. It wasn't really, they won all their games apart from that South African one, but it wasn't like they were really tearing trees down, and I think that potentially could be a rationale for it, where we've sort of hit a bit of a bump here after sort of obviously losing those 3 games in New Zealand due to having less players available because of the top 14, and then that sort of hangover potentially coming into the autumn obviously hasn't affected their domestic form. They're still doing very well in the Champions Cup, but that he thinks they maybe need a bit of a rocket, and to drop those 3 players, your record try scorer, who broke that record in the autumn. You have Gregory Aldry, captain, and then Gael Fiku, who's effectively like another captain for them. He's another key leader on the pitch. You spoke in your preview on TikTok, like the amount of caps that guy has and how much experience he has compared to the rest of the squad and the 8 uncapped players. I think, it's definitely, and when you consider that with Le Gourec and Luku and Intimac out for this one, they will probably potentially be back later on in the tournament, and Leo Barre out as well, who's been, as you said, has been very good in the past couple of years, sort of coming into the squad at 15. It's a couple of interesting calls there, and despite all of Ireland's problems, it's not all green with France, or not all blue, perhaps. So it'll be a very interesting watch, this one, I think. What do you see, firstly, for the sort of the predictions of this game and for both teams in this tournament?
I think it's weird. I think France as well, there will be a massive psychological element to it because of who Galtier has left out. Is this going to kind of, has he explained why he's done it, or is it going to kind of cause a rift amongst the changing room? We don't really know, but out of the 2, France are definitely on the better form, have definitely been producing the better fixtures, the better results. I think the only thing that's letting France down is their defensive capabilities. That game against Australia in the autumn, awesome game, but I think they leaked 30 odd points when they won and they won and put 40 on them. So that's a cause for concern definitely for Galtier in the defensive coaching setup. But for Ireland as
Sean
well,
Edwards,
yeah, John Edwards there.
Sean
I think for Ireland, it's really difficult because they didn't have a particularly bad autumn, but it was just the odd result and the odd performance. Like the one against New Zealand, tough. The one against South Africa, really tough, really up against the cosh with it, with how many players got put into the sin bin. So they got better as the autumn went on, but I still think there are some tired legs in there. There are some ageing heads, and therefore newer players coming in. So I think there's that disparity starting to make itself more apparent. So and with the game being in Paris, I can't see France dropping points so early on in the tournament. It's happened. I mean, it's happened before that you guys, 2 years ago, you guys went over and beat them on their own patch and quite substantially.
That was the opening game as well.
Yeah, so it's not out of the ordinary for Ireland to go away and do that, but I think with the statement that France are going to try and make this tournament, they've got to win this one. I think, I can't see them dropping the points, really.
Do you think either of those teams stand a chance of winning this championship? Obviously, stand a chance. That's sort of a quite harsh way of putting it. But do you think they're in the position to? I think everybody sort of expects England to sort of be the favourites, but will that transpire? England being the favourites, or do one of these two go and win it again?
I think France have got the better opportunity to win it. Just looking at how the fixtures lay out, who they've got at home, who they face away in comparison to Ireland as well, it does weigh in their favour a little bit better. Like Ireland have to come over to London and play at the Allianz, so that's a tough ask. Like it's people have fallen foul to it in the past. France did it last year, Scotland did it last year. Whenever you go away to any of the other Six Nation teams, it's such a difficult place to go. But yeah, as I say, I think just with the layout of the fixtures and who's playing where at home, it's definitely in the favour of France over Ireland.
Yeah, no, I think I would tend to actually agree with you on that there. This first game's a tricky one, though. I do think France stand a better chance of winning the competition they've got more depth, overall than despite the amount of players they've left out and the injuries they've got. You still look at their squad and it's absolutely fantastic. It's unbelievable the amount of talent they've been able to sort of, I guess, foster over the last couple of years. So I would fancy them to. They'll be up there. Them and England will be up there to go and win the championship. But I think in this one, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think Ireland could potentially come out of the blocks fast. I'm gonna go for just a very slim margin of victory for France here, but I think Ireland will come out and they'll show us a lot of things, because I think the pressure's not off. It's always on when you're Andy Farrell and you've got an Irish team here which have achieved so much in the past couple of years. But I think with the amount of injuries and the suspensions and stuff like that, it'll just maybe give them a little bit more freedom, and with maybe some background issues you're maybe mentioning with France, maybe they could potentially have a couple of problems. But yeah, I think they'll just about get it over the line in this one. But moving on to the Saturday game, we'll have to wait a
quick pause. France have actually released their team.
Oh, they have? Okay. Well, would you like to read it out live?
Yes. So we've got a front row of Jean-Baptiste Gros, Julien Marchand and Dorian Aldegheri. Obviously, everybody's having their own problems this time round, and obviously Uini Antonio had to retire due to cardiac problems, so that's really unfortunate for him.
Wish him all the best.
Yes, absolutely. And then a second row of Charles Olivon and Michael Guillard. Olivon into the second row from his usual back row position. Usually plays that 6 or sometimes into the 8. So, yeah, different seeing him in a 4 jersey. And then a back row of Francois Cros, Oscar Jegu and Anthony Gelonche, which is a very strong pack, I think. Despite some of the misses, it is still very, very good. No Cam Wokey. I know that he played for Bordeaux on the weekend, so maybe he's been saved or something. But yeah, a good front pack, to be fair. And then Dupont and Jalibert in the half-back positions, which we saw coming. Moafana and Deporter in the centres. and a back three of BLBRA, Atisagbe and Teddy Ramos, which a really lethal back three as well. And then on a bench of Malvaka, Neti, Montagna, Alradu, Miafu, Nucci, and then Serang and Gorg as the back replacements. Strong, very strong.
Yeah, that is strong.
It's always going to be a strong squad for France, though, isn't it, realistically?
Well, it's an 8-2 split as well, which Ireland have gone for as well, of course, with just Craig Casey and Jack Crowley as the two backs on the bench. So I think we both know which way this one's going to head, and that's just going to be a straight collision, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know what the weather's looking like in Paris, but if it's anything like it is here to go off, then it's going to be a forwards field day, that's for sure. Not going to be too many balls going too far out wide, but I'm sure Dupont, in his ways of magic, will make it happen.
Yeah, well, I'm very much looking forward to that one. And the France squad, breaking news on just straight on the Ruck and Roll Show. I don't think we've ever had a team announcement on the Ruck and Roll Show before, so that's a first. But we move on to Italy, Scotland. So, of course, Italy come into this one with quite a few injury problems, which I think has been the key sort of thing that's been discussed around them. They'll be without Tommaso Allen, Sebastian Negri, Ange Capuzzo, and also Ross Vincent for this one. So they come into this after avoiding a wooden spoon for the second year running, sort of looking to, I guess, shoot up that table and really start to sort of progress themselves as they go towards that World Cup. And potentially you look at Italy in a couple of years' time in Australia, and could they cause a couple of upsets? Could they maybe make it to the quarter-final of a World Cup? That would be probably the big next sort of step for them. Sort of going into this one, they've got a couple of good players coming through. Eduardo Todaro of Northampton Saints, of course. Is he injured? Okay, right.
Yeah,
well,
which is a real shame, because I was really excited to see him play. Obviously, as you say, he's been doing so well for Northampton Saints this season, especially when at the start, when all the internationals were kind of coming back from injury or coming back from international duties, he was the one that stepped up, and only 21 years old, and to be doing it on such a big stage like that, it would have been really good to see him prove his worth on an even bigger stage. So, real shame for him, and hopefully it doesn't write him out for the entire tournament, but as these things go, it probably will. It's
a shame. But Italy will have that match against Scotland, and a Scotland side, and we've recorded a preview for the Scotland game as well. We're sort of looking at Scotland, and they're under pressure, Dom, in this one. It does feel like it's hard to say there's an expectation of challenging for the championship, because you always think there's such great teams in the Six Nations. The level is so high. But after the autumn, after that, particularly that comeback defeat against Argentina, and missing out against the All Blacks yet again, sort of just feels like it's sort of a little bit rinse and repeat for Scotland, to be honest. And going into this one, sort of what are you expecting? Do you think Scotland can sort of get their Six Nations off to a good start and potentially challenge this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always the same with Scotland. They come up against some of the easier teams first, or they get some big wins at the beginning, and then it's like, oh my god, we've actually got a chance. And then they come up, and third game they usually slip up, and it's like, okay, maybe a second place, and then they lose again, and it's like, right, back down to fourth or fifth we go. But I was speaking to a mate of mine who's a big Scotsman, and saying, if this tournament goes as drastically as Scottish fans would dare to dream about, would you want Gregor Townsend out, or would you want to keep him in until the World Cup? Now, he's very much...
What is that threshold, out of curiosity, that they would be, you'd speak about going drastically bad? What would be that threshold?
A fifth or a sixth spot is drastically bad. I think even if you finish fourth, it's not a bad tournament, but two out of 5 wins, it's not ideal, really. But I think if you only win one game, or you win no games, or you win one game and other results go different ways. Anyway, not going to get into the details of that. But yeah, I think if he was to finish fifth or sixth, that was basically the question that I posed to him, and he said, considering how far out they are from the World Cup, there's no point in getting rid of him, and he's a very staunch Townsend out, leader. So I think I think the World Cup is going to be his final year. That'll be his parting gift. Hopefully he can get them to a quarterfinals, maybe even further, depending on how well the next couple of months go. But yeah, it's not looking great for Scotland, realistically, is it?
Yeah, well, you say 5th or 6th, but then you say you're 2 years out from the World Cup. So there's two sort of caveat points there. If they finish 5th or 6th, I don't see how you could stay, to be honest, because I think that's just like to finish below Italy and Wales like that. They're better. They are just a better squad. They just go have better squads than those two teams. Just like far superior, especially with the injuries that you've mentioned with Italy, and you know they've got a better squad than Wales. With the greatest respect to Wales, I think 4th is probably absolute minimum threshold, because you think, Ireland are still they're still a good side. They still took Australia to the cleaners in the They still challenged for the title last season. So 4th is probably minimum threshold. But to be honest, with those Irish injuries and with those friendship, omissions and injuries and whatever, and England have yet to win a Six Nations, so you can't really say, oh, they're serial winners, they're invincible, they're very, very, very one of the best sides in the world, but they haven't won anything sort of in the past couple of years. But what my point is, Scotland sort of 4th would still be quite underwhelming in my opinion, because I think when you look and consider the other squads, and you consider Scotland's squad with the domestic form they've had, with 19 Glasgow Warriors in there. Glasgow Warriors going unbeaten in Europe. They won the ERC the other year there. Edinburgh are going quite well as well. They've made it through to the round of 16 of the Champions Cup as well. The talent is clearly there, Dom. The talent is clearly there, and I think, just to say, I think Gregor Townsend has done an absolutely fantastic job with Scotland, but it just sort of seems like he needs to, there has to be a point where he takes them to that next level and beats in Ireland away from home, gets a big result, gets over that Irish hoodoo, because they have had a bad record against Ireland. Finishing 3rd, potentially even finishing 2nd, potentially challenging for this one should be the aim. It should be 3rd and above, should definitely be the aim for Scotland, because I think they've got the squad to do it. And I know that Finn Russell's getting a wee bit older, and that's probably one thing they would be looking at in terms of they need to capitalise on this as well. But I just think the pressure is on to really sort of push forward on this, in my opinion. But what do you think? What do you think? I know you've spoke to your friends who support Scotland, but what do you think is the sort of the minimum threshold for Gregor Townsend, or do you think he's going to be safe no matter what heading into that World Cup?
I think he's safe unless he genuinely wins, unless he genuinely loses every game, because that losing 5 against 5 of the top 10, if you can't even beat them, who you play year on year out, then how are you going to be able to fare against, the unknowns of who are in their group? I know that Ireland are in their group, aren't they? But anyway, I think he is more than likely safe, is how I'm viewing it, because, as I say, 20 months out from the World Cup, it would just be a little bit silly to have to then bring in a new coach. Where are the opportunities? He'd basically have 2 major tournaments to turn it around, and that would be next year's Six Nations and this new World tournament that they do with the top tier clubs, the tier 1 clubs.
Yeah, the Nations Championship. Yeah,
the Nations Championship. So that it would just be a bit of suicide for Scotland. And since they've now extended the World Cup and brought in more teams and added another phase to the tournament, you've just got to put the faith in the guy who's been running the show for the last six years ish. If you look at Scotland's games as well, I think location is such a big play in how the fixtures are going to go. I think the only one they potentially slip up on, if they had a really good run of form, the only one I would say they'd potentially slip up on would be playing Ireland in Dublin. I think that is a really tough one to have. They've got they go to Wales away, but Wales aren't the squad that they used to be, as we all know. They've got France at home, England at home. They go away to Italy, but they probably back themselves to be better than Italy. So yeah, it's pretty much just Ireland going over to Dublin. It's a really tough ask, and on the last, on that last day, on that Super Saturday, it is quite a harrowing thought for them. But I think the biggest takeaway I got from the Autumn Internationals was that how England kind of brought in this POM squad and the bomb squad for South Africa, bringing on players off the bench to kind of be your finishers and bring on the same intensity. Scotland didn't have that, and I think they're now starting to find players who can do those roles, like Henry Pollock. He might be one of the best back rowers we've got, but he's incredible when he comes off the bench and just brings the energy. So they need to find players like that who are just going to come on.
Would one of those players be Freddie Douglas, potentially, from Edinburgh? He's been highly touted as a big Drackle threat. You're increasingly adding to that back row, and when you speak of players coming off the bench and having impact, could that be a potential?
Yeah, absolutely. I think back rowers is always there's plenty of options for coaches to choose from. For England, it's so tough. For Ireland, it's difficult to balance who to go for, especially when you've got so many who can play in the second row and the back row. But you've got Rory Dodge, you've got Jack Dempsey, you've got Jamie Ritchie, Ferguson, as you say. So there are a lot of options that they can bring in and can use. But obviously, when you've only got 3 to choose from, you've got to decide, right, who's going to empty the tank in the first 50, who's going to come on and play absolutely flat out for that final 30. But it's a managerial choice, and that's what you've got to decide. Borthwick's got it pretty much spot on, because he knows that the likes of Underhill will just go flat out for first 50. He's not going to come on and change the game much. And the same with Ben Earl, he can just go flat out for 80, and then Pollock brings on that energy. Tom Curry will just absolutely nail people for 30 minutes, and that's him, and that's them done. So yeah, that's what he needs to kind of establish over this tournament and bring into play, because it's how you're going to overcome these other teams. If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely something that we're seeing a shift towards in World Rugby. South Africa will obviously gone first like they normally do when it comes to international rugby trends. But I think Scotland, they've got the depth. I think they do have more depth and we maybe give them credit for, Scotland, as I sort of said, and I think that's maybe why the expectation comes in so much, because they have had, it's a better squad than they've ever had before, and I think they've never finished second in the Six Nations. They've never finished they've finished third on 4 occasions. I think if they can sort of I don't think with how strong England have been, it would be unfair potentially to sort of say, yeah, you have to win the championship. But I think to go up there and sort of put a good challenge in, when you consider they've got those two the two favourites of the tournament really in France and England at home, there's opportunity there for Gregor Townsend to sort of shush his doubters really. I've been critical of them there, but I will caveat by saying they play fantastic rugby, and they're a joy to watch. So we'll see what happens. But in terms of moving it back to this one, Italy, Scotland, we've had sort of obviously 2 years ago, who could forget Italy winning this match. They're without, as we said, key players, but they have been sort of improving as a nation for years, and in terms of their depth, in terms of their quality. How do you reckon this one's going to go, and do you think Italy can stun Scotland again?
I think there is always they of course they always can, but I think just with the players that they lack, the centre off is going to be really interesting. With Menoncello and then up against Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu, it's going to be really, really special to watch when it gets a bit of free-flowing rugby. It will probably be dry in Italy, I imagine. I can't imagine it's too wet over there. So it is a day for the backs to have a field day. And I think in the scrum as well, and in the set piece, Scotland do have them. Speed to set, strength, as you say as well, depth in back row and second row. So yeah, I think it has to be Scotland to take. Obviously, both teams will be wanting to get off to a winning start, but it's just, you've just got to back one of the home nations. They know how to win. You can make winning a habit, but you can also make losing a habit. And if you're going statistically, Italy are the more likely to lose this one. So yeah, I'd back Scotland.
I'd back Scotland as well, myself personally. You speak about the weather there, and I think, according to a brief search, that it could potentially rain, actually. It has been a bit sunny this week in Rome, but it could rain. So that could be another factor that could add into the equation. I tend to agree with you, though, Dom, in terms of Scotland winning this one. I think they will get the job done. I don't think it'll be... They'll not win by lots. Obviously, I think gone are the days where Italy get absolutely, pummeled by teams. They're a good side nowadays under Caseta. But I think what Scotland will be aiming to do in this one is really lay down a statement. They come in sort of fairly fully stacked, and you'd probably say fully cooked as well in terms of their domestic form with Glasgow and Edinburgh. So I think if they can come in and sort of lay down a statement and sort of maybe go out there, play a bit of rugby when they can, obviously, and get potentially a good convincing win, and that would lay down a good marker with them going in to England next week at Murrayfield, which is always a big one, and we will move into another big one, of course, which is England versus Wales. Now, Wales in this fixture last year, who could forget? I was sat with a very sad Welshman on that day, Dom, who we both know very well, Thomas Oakley, who of course has been on the show a couple of times before. 14 points to 68 that day. I mean, an absolute pummeling. In Cardiff. Wales coming off the back of a record home defeat against South Africa in the autumn. There is, as I'll have mentioned on my preview, there's been turmoil around the Ospreys and their future and sort of the ownership model between the different regions. There's injury to the British and Irish Lion, Jack Morgan, but there's also some positives, I guess, with some of the exciting attacking talent they may have. So I think England come into this one as key favourites, Dom, but what can we expect from Steve Borthwick and then, conversely, from Steve Tandy and his Welsh side?
Obviously, England have already named their squad, a very strong squad. Maro Itoje is the shock move on the bench, but he's had quite a difficult last couple of weeks with the passing away of his mother. So shout out to and condolences to him and his family. But it's we look set. I mean, I don't like Tommy Freeman in the centre, but it makes way to give Arundella a chance and see what he can do from the minute get-go. But yeah, when you've only got Marcus Smith and Ben Spencer as your back options, it doesn't allow you to play around too much, I believe. But we'll see where Borthwick's going to go down with it. But for Tandy, he obviously yet to announce his Wales squad. But I think it'll just be a routine win for England. Wales, after narrow win against Japan in the autumn, we were both watching that one, and it was hard work for Wales, and I just can't see how they could overturn this England squad. The way they've been performing, who they've been beating, it is just it's a Chihuahua versus a Great Dane, realistically, isn't it? You're not going to back the Chihuahua. It's just never going to happen. So, I've got not much else to say.
Fantastic analogy.
I think we are just going to absolutely batter them, and I could see it being over 40 points. Oh, really? Right.
What do you think? There's any? You sort of speak about, I guess, a mismatch in terms of the two sides' form, and that is undoubted. But did you see any? I think in this tournament, Wales need to build on the sort of the attacking play that they've done. They were far more dynamic in attack, which wasn't actually saying much compared to what we sort of seen previously in the last couple of years. With sort of issues in defence, they're leaking a lot of tries still. Struggling to compete in those key moments with those bigger teams in the world. Do you think there's anything they can take from the autumn though, in terms of that attacking dynamism and sort of build on it in here? Is there any hope of them getting anything out of this game, or do you think it's just going to be routine?
I think if you look back through the games, obviously the game against South Africa, that was just a big waste of time for fans, for players. Like, there was just absolutely no reason for that game to go ahead. If you look at the New Zealand game, I think that was the best game they played. Rhys Sammet got a hat-trick. They were demonstrating really quick-flowing, expansive rugby through the backs. And there's a lot of quality in
Tom Rogers in the New Zealand game.
Was it Tom Rogers that got the hat trick?
Yeah, Tom Rogers. Yeah,
my bad.
Zamet did score.
Yeah. So they've got Dan Edwards, they've got Thomas Williams, Ben Thomas, Rhys Sammet, Tom Rogers, Blair Murray. They've got a very good backline. You look at that, and a couple of fans from any of the other nations would go, "Oh, yeah, I'd have him in my squad, or I'd have him over here or something." So, you wouldn't take the whole lot, but you definitely pick and choose. And then it is the forwards where there are just still those little gaps. Obviously, there's no Jack Morgan. Tandy's not keen on choosing Tommy Raffel. You have got Aaron Wainwright. You have got Daft Jenkins, who is so integral for them. And then you've got a decent.
You seen that in the South Africa game?
Yeah, like he's so important. I think he made like 30 odd tackles or something, didn't he? Like, it was ridiculous, but it's better than it was. I've got to give credit where credit's due, and it is so much better than it was last year. Look, you were looking at them and going, bloody hell, then it's pretty dire now. But you look at them and you go, you know what, they could get a win here and there, and I think they will. I don't think they'll finish. I think they'll still get the wooden spoon, but I think they'll leave with a win. I think the way that it will go is that they'll beat Italy, but then Italy will beat someone like Scotland or something. I don't know, but for instance. But yeah, I think it'll be. Yeah, it's gonna be better for them, a better year.
Yeah. Well, I tend to agree with that. I actually think they won't get the wooden spoon this time around. I think actually Italy could get it this time. I think there's a lot of injuries there, and I think that's sort of that might knock some momentum out of them. And I think sort of having those 3 home games can sort of help them build something. I think it will be probably a 5th place finish for them. But yeah, I think they can build something. But in terms of this game, I sort of tend to agree. Their backs are going to be very much against the wall. It's just going to be, I think, a case in this game. How well can they sort of improve their defence from that? I guess you can't really use the South Africa game as a comparison because they had so many players out. But the New Zealand game, they shipped over 50 points that day. Can they sort of keep that under 50, maybe 40 mark, and make the game a little bit more competitive and see if they can land a couple of blows, because they've got, as you mentioned, in that back line with Tom Rogers and Rhys Sammet, who could forget his last appearance at Twickenham, which was that chip, not chip and chase, but the try that he scored against Harlequins. So they've got talent to hurt them there, but I think it will mainly just be sort of how can they manage the game and sort of potentially damage limitation in this one. I think England will win this one comfortably, and England will want to lay down a marker. They won't want this one to be sort of drift away and sort of not drift away from in terms of a result, but drift away in terms of a performance. They'll want to carry on that good momentum, because I think all the momentum's with them here in the Six Nations, and going into Murrayfield next week, where they've had a pretty poor record, they'll be wanting to carry some real confidence going into that one, and I think they can against this Welsh side. But that sort of rounds us up on our round 1 sort of previews. I'm going to ask you for your sort of predictions here for a couple of things, Dom, potentially putting you on the spot here. But for your 1 to 6 for the Six Nations this year, how do you think the table's going to finish?
England, France, Ireland, Scotland, Italy, Wales. I've had that one logged for a while. England to beat France on the final day. Yeah.
Okay. Grand Slam?
Grand Slam. Going to do it in style.
Okay. Interesting. I'm gonna mostly agree with that. I'm gonna go with England. I actually think they'll win. I don't think the Calcutta Cup, the record in Murrayfield. Actually, I think Scotland will. I actually think Scotland will beat you next week. But I think you'll win in Paris and win the championship.
Where do you think France?
So that's the question.
this
You
weekend.
sort of say that, and then it's like a hot take, and then it's like, well, where are they actually going to slip up?
Gonna back your boys
I
to
think,
beat them.
well, obviously France are good. I think France are going to lose to you, but I think France maybe get less points than you in terms of bonus points and stuff like that. And it maybe comes down to very sort of tight on the last day. But I sort of fancy, I fancy Scotland really against you guys. But I would go for. Actually, then that's gonna. I think I'm thinking too far ahead here, to be honest. Because then that wouldn't make sense. Okay, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for England, France, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Italy. So one change from you. And however way that happens, I think bonus points will come into factor there in terms of Scotland and France's finishes there.
Yeah.
Yes. In terms of player of the tournament and try score of the tournament, who would you have?
Player of the tournament's so difficult. It's so difficult. I'm going to go with a really, really outside shout. I'm going to say Guy Pepper. I think more often than not he'll be asked to play 80 minutes. Or at least, they might take Earl off over him sometimes and then put an 8 on it, put Pollock in at 8 and keep Pepper in that 6 role. But I think he's just a jackling machine. Going forwards, he is pretty good still. He makes strong carries, but yeah, defensively, he's just an absolute rock. And I think he's going to make so many turnovers and just going to be an absolute weapon for England in this tournament. For my top try scorer, I've got 2. I either think it might be Manny Faye-Waboso or Louis Rees-Zammit.
Louis Rees-Zammit.
Yes. Now hear me out. And I said this in one of my the Green King thing. Who else I know they've got Tom Rogers, but who else is as prolific a try scorer for Wales than Rees-Zammit? Like, if their drives are going to come from somewhere, it's going to be from going out wide. Dewey Lack might get a few, but I think he can create something from nothing. And so, yeah, I think he's going to be a massive piece in their puzzle that they are so glad to have back. And I think he's going to, I reckon 5 tries, maybe 6, and be up there with top try scorer. And I think Manny Faye-Waboso will have a really good tournament as well.
Interesting. You know what something crazy, Don? You know
Have you got
something
the
crazy?
same?
No, I don't have the exact same on both, but my player of the tournament, I actually was thinking Guy Pepper as well. I actually think it will be Guy Pepper. I tend to agree with you there. I'm not going to change that because that's genuinely what I was thinking when I was thinking of this one. I think you're exactly right. The form he's been having for Bath, how great he was in the autumn, how key those back row players are to the modern game. They are some of the best players in each of the teams. So yeah, I fancy Guy Pepper for player of the tournament. In terms of try scorer of the tournament, however, I think it will be. I just can't look past Louis Bielbiere. I know he broke the record last year. I think he's still just performing week in, week out for Bordeaux Begle. And I think he's just an absolute. I mean, you saw it against Bristol Bears. I mean, it's just tearing them apart. And even in the rain, he can do it whatever weather. You just put a rugby ball in his hands and special things happen. So I'm gonna go Bielbiere for the try scorer, or top try scorer. But this moves us on into one of my questions actually is related around top try scorers in the tournament, which moves us on to the 10-question quiz that we've got. So we're going to, in this season, to bring back in some sort of more trivia to test both our knowledge and make sure that we're actually keeping up to date with rugby rather than just saying we are. So we've got a 10-question quiz based on the Six Nations just down the years, just overall. So Dom, would you like to take it away first and sort of ask me my questions, and I'll go for yours.
Absolutely. Okay. So the Six Nations was previously the Five Nations and even the home nations before that. But what year did it move to 6 teams?
2000.
That is correct. You are up 1 point. Well done, Mr. Gaston.
Very much.
Question 2. In the Six Nations history, which nation has won the most individual games?
It's an interesting one. I know who's won the most titles. I just don't. Yeah, it's a tricky one because there's a couple of teams in there like Ireland and Wales. They've won quite a few Grand Slams between them. In all fairness, I think it's going to be Wales though. Is this in terms of like since the Six Nations? Italy came to be involved.
Since 2002. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think it's France. I've got it between England and Wales, I think. I'm going to go England and play it safe.
Should have gone closer to home. It is Ireland.
Oh, it's Ireland?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's surprising there.
Yeah, they've got 89. Wales are second with 86.
You see, this is, cause they both have a lot of Grand Slams between them.
Yeah, it's very close. Anyway, Italy became renowned for getting the wooden spoon. But what was the most amount of times they won it in a row?
So let's say this really came in 2000, but they've had a couple of victories here and there against sides sort of in the 2000s against Scotland's and your France's, and they've gone from like 2012 to like 20. The number's just shooting out at me. I'm going to go 12 years.
You have overshot a little bit. It is only 8, but that's still 8 is pretty substantial. It was between 2016 and 2023. So, yes, 8 years. Mental. Because they did like 4 years, didn't win it, 4 years, didn't win it, and then they went on an 8 season long run of winning it. So, yeah, tough to be an Italian rugby player. Anyway, question 4. 2 people have won the player of the tournament 3 times. Who are they?
Stuart Hogg is popping out at me immediately. So 2 players, so I've won it 3 times. Finn Russell, no, not Finn Russell. Wilkinson, he've won it a couple of times, potentially. That is a tough one. I'm gonna go Stuart Hogg and Brian O'Driscoll.
Brian O'Driscoll came out of a left wing from nowhere. I'll give you half a point because you've only got one of them. Brian O'Driscoll is correct, but Antoine Dupont was the other one.
Oh, was he? Oh, dear.
Yeah.
No, I know Stuart Hogg won at least 2, but I wasn't sure if he had won a third one, so I was sort of just shooting with it.
Yeah. He won 2, but couldn't quite clinch that third. Question 5. England last won the Grand Slam in 2016, but who was the top try scorer in that year? Really testing your knowledge.
2016. These are tough questions, man. Oh my days! I thought I knew more about the Six Nations. Who's the try scorers? 2016. So wouldn't be anyone who's French because they were not particularly great that year. Anyone? Zebo? No. Wales, North maybe got a couple, but I don't think he got enough. Did England get anyone? May? Oh, that's a tough. I actually can't think of. I'm gonna go for Stuart Hogg again. To be honest, I think Stuart Hogg was maybe player of the tournament that year.
I think he might have been player of the tournament, but unfortunately, we were looking for George North.
Oh, George North.
It was actually a really low scoring year, so he got 4.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He got 4, and then Jonathan Joseph came second with 3, and someone else got 3 as well. But yeah, you were again really close. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go more recent with this one. Yeah. Last year we opened with France battering Wales 43-0 in Paris. But who was sent off for Les Bleus in that game? I will give you a hint. It was in like the 70th minute, so quite late on in the game.
Yeah, I remember someone getting sent off. I just can't quite remember who. Miafu is shooting out at me. I think it's someone a little bit more less known than him because obviously he's quite a big gentleman. He's quite hard to miss. Olivon? No, it would have been Olivon. He's got quite a good discipline record. I'm gonna go Miafu just because it's the only one I can think of.
It wasn't, unfortunately. It was Roman Ntamack.
Ntamack is a surprise, actually. Yeah. Okay, was it a high shot or something like that, or just like a?
I think so. I think it was just.
Yeah, maybe on Ben Thomas or something like that. Yeah. You know that you say that, I'm thinking, maybe, fair.
Well, I was kind of looking through the games last
year.
So
close.
I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I forgot about that. But there you go.
Everyone's a genius in hindsight, I suppose.
Which player has the most Six Nations appearances with 69? You're going to have to do some deep searching in your noggin for this one. It's a name you'll definitely know. It's a name you definitely know, but it's not one that would always be at the forefront of your mind. Yeah,
because Brian O'Driscoll comes out straight away, but now that you've said that, I don't think it is him. Paul O'Connell's probably played quite a bit. Who for Dusautoir, maybe? He's a lot for France. Wales, you'd probably think Alan Wynne-Jones won a fair few caps. He's won a fair few caps in general. I'm going to go Alan Wynne-Jones.
Unfortunately not. It's a bit of a left field shout. It's Italy's Sergio Parisse.
Yeah.
You just don't think.
I thought I'd be doing a lot better on these. I can't lie. I pride myself. I pride myself in my trivial knowledge, but
yeah, you did well
not
at
going
the end of year one, didn't you? Okay,
Yeah,
question
it is.
8. Nearly at the end of your struggles. In 2022,
It's 1.5, isn't it? 1.5 points, I think.
yeah,
I think. Yeah.
it's going really well. Okay, in 2022, they introduced the trophy that is contested between Scotland and Italy. What is the name of that cup?
What year was it again?
2022.
Oh yes, I do know. I think I know this. No, that's maybe Wales, Scotland. Oh,
I think
I'm not
I'll
gonna
give you
get
a hint.
this.
The Wales Scotland one, I think, is called the Doddy Weir Cup.
Yeah, I was gonna go Doddy Weir, but I don't think. Yeah, I thought that as well. Absolutely no idea, to be honest. Literally, I can't even think of anything. See, is there a player that played for in Italy whilst being in Scotland? Oh, I don't know.
No, I'm gonna have to time you out.
No, hold on. The BT Cup or something. I don't know.
No, it's the Catita Cup.
Tita, yeah, I was never gonna get that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what that means. Is that some sort of Italian word for something?
Well, I just thought it was a knockoff of Calcutta, to be honest, but
Catita, potentially so. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Question 9. While on the topic of cups, when was the last time Scotland won? Now, bear with me on my pronunciation. The Centenary Quack. No, Quake. Quaich. The trophy played between Scotland and Ireland is called the Centenary Quake.
Quack. Okay, right. So when did Ireland and Scotland? When did Scotland last beat Ireland?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. This one I might get. They haven't beaten us in Dublin since like 2012 or something like that. It's crazy. I remember Greg Laidlaw slotting a late kick in 2017 to beat us, but I'm not sure. So that was the last time. It was maybe COVID. It's maybe 2021. Oh, this is tough. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna go 2021.
You are unfortunately wrong again. It was 2017.
What? I could have swore we beat. No, maybe it was the other way around. Oh my word! I might retire.
Okay, this is your last chance. I've catered this one to hopefully be a good one and that you can get right.
Okay.
Which Irish player became the highest capped Six Nations player for his nation last year?
Highest cap last year.
I will not in the Six Nations. I will neither disclose whether they are retired or not anymore.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. The most capped Irish player ever, or just Six Nations?
Just
in the Six Nations.
Came off the bench.
Yeah, the guy I'm thinking of, I think, became the most capped player ever recently, but I'm not sure if it's the most capped. I'm thinking Cian Haley, but I'm not sure whether it's maybe Peter O'Mahony instead. Was it Cian Haley? When did he hang up his boots? He went out with O'Mahony and Murray, I think, didn't he? I'm gonna go Cian Haley.
Yes, Adam. Come on. Well done.
Happy days. The misery's over. What was that? 2.5 out of 10?
2.5 out of 10. Formidable score.
Formidable, yeah. Well, you still have to beat that, mate. So just hold your horses here. Don't know
Yeah,
what I've got
not
up my sleeve.
Too confident. Okay, let's go.
Goodness.
I'm ready.
Right. Anyway, first question: What Wales completed a 31-24 comeback against Scotland in Cardiff with a Shane Williams late try? What year was that game played?
So, for Shane Williams, it must have been early 10s or late noughties. I'm going to say, I think it would have been a little bit earlier. I'm going to say 2009. I think it's too early, though.
That is incorrect, Dom. You're very, very close. It is 1 year after. It is 2010.
I was going to say 2010 as well.
Fair play. Like, I'm surprised how close you got to it, because I was thinking when I thought of the question in my head, it was a lot earlier than it was. But yes, it was 2010. That famous one where he just sort of dived through the try line about 6 meters into the air, or not 6 meters, a couple of meters into the air. Yeah, he had quite the spring on him. Right, moving on. How many Six Nations titles do England have?
7.
So Six Nations, so since 2000.
7.
That's correct. That is correct. There you go. You've already halved my score. Just about. Well, not quite, but. Jacob Stockdale, question 3. Jacob Stockdale set a try record for the most tries in a single tournament against England in 2018. How many tries did he get that year?
What? Say that again.
So Jacob Stockdale set a Six Nations try scoring record for the most in a single Six Nations, and this last game was against England in 2018. But how many tries did he get in that whole tournament?
Well, if I work this out logically, BLBRA beat the record last year, but I don't know whether he equalled it and got 8. Did Stockdale just get the 7 and it was a record then? Or did he also have 8? I'm going to say 7.
That's correct, Dom.
Oh, yes.
There you go. You're half a point away from me now, so one more will do it. This could be a very boring last 6 questions. Fourth question. Which Italy player scored to help them clinch their first ever victory in Cardiff in 2022?
I know who gave the try assist. That was the Capozzo. I genuinely don't know, but I'm going to say Ioane. I don't think it is, but...
That's incorrect. It was Edoardo Paravani.
Yeah,
so.
I got that.
Yeah, I know it was. I thought that one was a tricky one. To be fair, which Scottish centre scored 2 against England in 2018 to clinch victory in the Calcutta Cup?
Pretty sure it was Hugh Jones.
That's correct, Dom. There you go. I should have gone Scottish player in hindsight, but I didn't want to change the questions just because you were doing a bit better than me, because that would be sour grapes. Okay, well that's 3 points, so you've officially won. But I'll give you the last 5 questions to see how well you know the Six Nations. Clearly, who was man of the match in Wales's famous 2012 victory over England?
Oh, the score was like 33, or wasn't it? Something, wasn't it?
That would have been the 2013 game, so this is a year before, so this is at Twickenham.
There's a few names in my head. I've got was it Warburton? Was it George North? Was it Lee Halfpenny? Probably not Lee Halfpenny. Was it Alan Wynne? Was it somewhat... I don't know if Dan Lydiate was playing at that time. I'm going to say Sam Warburton.
That is correct, Dom.
No!
That is correct, yeah. If you remember in that game, just for our viewers, that was the game he made that probably one of the best chop tackles ever on the Manu Tuilagi, stopping him a couple of metres from the line. So, yeah, well, great day for Wales that was. They wouldn't mind repeating that on Saturday. Who scored in last season's fixture between France and Ireland to finish off an intercept try?
Did you say which nation it was or not?
Yeah, so France versus Ireland. So in Dublin last year, who scored for France's intercept try?
Obviously BLBRA scored in that game, but was it him that did it? I think Penno scored. I don't know, I'm going to say Penno.
It's correct again.
No.
There you go. Mine were maybe a little bit too easy, maybe. I'll know that for next week anyway. Who completed an outrageous 40-metre pass for France against Wales in 2024?
See, my gut just wants to go to the big man himself. Well, not so big man. Go Antoine Dupont. I think it is Antoine Dupont.
That is incorrect. It was his understudy for that day. With Dupont out injured, it was Nolan Lagarec. Or I think actually he was away at preparing for the Olympics actually. But Lagarec was the answer. How many times have Italy beat Scotland in the Six Nations since 2015?
Since 2015. Now, is this a trick question? I'm going to say 0.
That is incorrect, Dom. Well, if you had been listening to my great statistic the other earlier on, you would have known that they beat them 2 years ago in Rome, and they also beat them in 2015 at Murrayfield. So the answer was twice. So there you go. That is. There we go. So you're currently on 5, heading into the final question. Well in the lead, of course. What year did France-Wales famously go over 100 minutes?
Oh, God. Okay. It was in the 10s. So I've got 10 years to play with. I'm going to say pre-2018. Maybe not. I don't know. It's going to be a stab in the dark. 2014.
Well, you were right with pre-2018, but that is incorrect. The answer was 2017.
Okay.
So, there you go.
I mean, I could easily say I was going to say that, but I had pretty much every year in my head going, oh, it could be that one, it could be that one. But
yeah, it was, yeah. That's fair. It was a tricky question, to be fair. But that is the end of our quiz, and Dom is the winner on this occasion. So he gets his comeback for the end of season 3 special, where I won, and now he has beat me quite convincingly, doubled my score effectively. Not upset about that whatsoever. But that spells the end of the show. It's been a pleasure to be back on the Ruck and Roll Show to kick off season 4 and our Six Nations coverage. Keep an eye out for the rest of the week on our Six Nations previews for each team. Obviously, we've had those first 2 out for the Ireland-France game on Thursday night, but we'll have the rest of those for you as the week goes on. But thank you very much for listening and watching, wherever you're, whatever platform you are tuning in on. Thank you very much for Dom, for co-hosting, and that is a wrap. See you next week.